All right, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's session of Let's Light. This week we're going to be taking a look at a scene that a student submitted a while ago. They were struggling with an issue, which I'll show you here in just a second. And basically, they sent me over the file. I took a look at it. It took me a little while to uncover what was actually happening, and it's a really common mistake or common issue that people run into. And so I thought I would just go ahead and run you guys through the process a little bit. And then once I solve that solution, just kind of take the lighting through the comp and showing you guys the final output. So this is hopefully a process where I can do the whole, like I'm going to try and do the whole thing in about a half hour. So I'm only going to use one light and I'll see if how far I can get it with that. And then we'll take it through Nuke because I want to show you guys not only how to solve this one problem, but how I basically start to set up a scene. And because I think a common mistake that often gets made is people will begin lighting their shot and then think that they need to like absolutely perfect the lighting just so before they bring it into Nuke and start compositing. And I think that's a mistake. I think you should kind of just slap something in there, get an initial look, bring it in the comp, adjust the values around, kind of see where you stand, and then go back into lighting. Because I think the relationship between lighting and compositing should be much more fluid than that. They should move back and forth. It shouldn't just be like one time you do lighting and then you final export it and then you bring it to Nuke. So let me go ahead and show you that now. And so let me just make sure everyone's all set up here on Facebook. Looks like we're going well there. And then let me share my screen and we'll get underway. All right. So this is the scene we're going to be working with here. Just a little boy and a teddy bear. They're just reading a book. Pretty straightforward stuff there. Let me go ahead and hide my camera so I don't block anything. And I'll take this off. So you can see just a little kid and a character. Let me show you the rest of the scene. So you've got this, you've got them set up in this little room here. You've got, yeah, pretty much nothing too crazy. You got a little bookshelf, got all open windows around. We've got a ceiling and some walls set up there. Little whatever they call these interlocking floors that kids or offices have, and that's about it. And as you can see, I've gone ahead and set up one spotlight here, and it's going to be just kind of over their shoulder, looking behind them, because the setup for the lighting that they wanted was to be coming in through these windows and just kind of backlighting the characters a little bit and getting some good look on them that way. So if you go into the render cam here, we do a quick render on this. Remember, that's the only light that's back there, right? It's just that one light. And the characters' faces, this is a little bit overlit, but just to exemplify this, why are the front of the characters getting so bright? Like, it was one of those things where I took a look at it and I was like, okay, let me just make sure that there's, because lots of times you do this and maybe there's like a light buried inside of a group over here to the side. And so let me just go ahead and turn off the illumination by default. And you're like, nope, that's it. That's the only light that's in there. Like, all right, so double check. You know, it's definitely behind them. Like it should just be coming in, hitting them, and creating like a little bit of a rim. And then after digging around a little bit, I was like, I don't understand. They're surrounded by like these black walls. Like, I don't get what the deal is. My mistake was that I assumed that just because the UI displayed these as black, that they were actually black. Because when you look at the material, you can see that they are a bright white. So what's happening is the light is shining through this window, hitting this wall and reflecting back on the characters. And it's just acting like a big reflection card. So even though those elements aren't on camera, you have to be very aware of what's going on in your scene, even if they're not. So like if I turn this off, let me turn down the light a little bit. Let me go ahead and refresh this render. Okay, now you can kind of start to see. Let's go ahead and recreate this. The light was still looking a little funky there. Let me go ahead and just recreate it. So I just select him, hit F to put him full frame, wrap around behind them, We'll just put it right here just to check it. Select light. Go down to the Arnold tab, make sure that this is turned on. It's way too bright. It's good to know that it's working. Okay, now you can see, compared to where we were before, we're losing a lot of that additional bounce light that's going in there. And that's all great. But looking at them, I can see that there's like the teddy bear is looking about right. But for some reason, like I'm wondering why it's actually not casting a shadow. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But basically we've got a bunch of light, like I'm looking at this character and the next thing I'm seeing is that light is just like screaming through him. Like he's not, his subsurface doesn't seem to be working at all here. So what I want to do is I want to go check in on his node and I want to look at his subsurface and it's like, okay, cool. And like knowing the scale of the scene is a big one. And I think that this is much smaller than that. So let's go ahead and take down the scale of this a little bit. And actually there's like 3 different skin nodes in here. I'm not quite sure why. And let's see if we take them all down. Huh. It's funny. All right, so you can start to see that there's less subsurface. There's more bounce light coming in here. His glasses are getting a little crazy too. But so strange. I wonder why let's go ahead and just increase this radius a little bit. Huh. Wonder why it's not like we're not seeing any shadow values in here. It's very, very strange. That definitely did not happen before when I was testing it. I'm going to increase this, change that around. And then now you can start to see the skin kind of falling into place a little bit better. The eyes are getting super bright, but I feel like something's gone wrong with my cache here. So I'm actually going to close out of this and restart the scene. Sorry for the delay, but that gives me a chance to actually talk about something else here. So I want to talk about something that's going on in the comp. So one of the things that'll happen, so here's the render that I'll spit out here in a minute that we'll work with. Go ahead and reopen this. Let's do this one. And one of the things that I want to talk about is that once I'm done building all this up, do this. Bet you there's some mental ray nodes in this or something because it's an older file. That's gonna get mad. Yep, mental ray nodes. Okay. Okay, yep. All right, so basically the thing I wanted to talk about was that in this file, we have I want to create a background, right? So I want there to be something outside the window, so I just create this and I create this. So one of the things that I always see is, and you can see that this file is an HDR file. Whenever you're working with a background that's going to be either overexposed or underexposed or something, you always want to make sure to find yourself an HDR, an EXR, a RAW file, something with an extended pixel range. And what do I mean by an extended pixel range? So if you, computer is not very happy with me right now. Let's see. Basically, an extended pixel range is a lot, like if you watch just down here, if I hover over the sun, you can see the values go up to like 100 or 50, or they go super high, right? This is the exact same image over here to the side where this is capped off at 1. So this is a JPEG. And what I want to say is that when you are working with this file, and we go ahead and let's say we need to make this background a lot darker. Like if I take this and I expose this down, you can see, check out how the sun comes down with it, right? Like you can still see the sun. And if you go up, it goes up exponentially well. And when it comes down, it goes down. And everything still kind of builds together. And it's really, really nice. If I did that exact same thing with this JPEG, you completely lose that. Because this is coming down with starting at a value of 1. There's no variation, and then there's no nothing. So same thing happens with the black points if you're working with a dark image and you're trying to lift it up. And I'm saying that because in this example, I'm taking that background image and I'm just like jacking up the values to get them to kind of blow out to an extreme white. And I don't want any super blacks being crunchy in there. I want them to have an extended pixel range so they can go up with that. Okay, back in the scene here. Thank you for the brief delay there. We are going to go ahead and just make sure that this is a little bit smaller. Say 480 there. Okay. Okay, now we're getting a shadow in there. Again, not quite sure why that was going wrong. We'll select this character. You can see he's got these different skins. And what I did was I took the scale of the skin down to 0.001, which was originally at 1. And you can see that just too much stuff kind of comes glowing through there. You can see it here too. You can check out his ear. Just much less, much more in the scale of the scene. So we got this, again, got that light kind of coming through the backside there. It's looking a little bit dim here. Again, I want to make sure that it feels like a bright, sunshiny day back behind it. So let's go ahead and just increase that spotlight a little bit more. Somewhere up in this region here. So it feels a little bit brighter, but that's kind of what we're looking for, right? Like we're kind of feeling like it's going to be a little bit bright here on the ground. And like I said, this is one of the things I said at the top. I don't know if this is going to work well with the background. It's really, really hard for me to get a good sense of the way the lighting is going to look against this black background. Now, I can definitely put in an image plane or something for context back there when I'm lighting. But what I like to do is I like to just go ahead and render out, like I said, there's just this one spotlight in here that's shining in, light kind of bouncing around. I like to go ahead and use that, render out a frame. So I'll go ahead and change the settings, render out the full res of the frame, and then I'll take that in Nuke and start playing with it from there. So I rendered out this image, and now we're going to go into Nuke a little bit. So let's just go ahead and take this, and I'll show you the whole buildup of this. Because again, I want this background. I want this as the main element, and I want this as the background, right? So the first thing that I want to do is just make sure that they're all scaled in together, like they're the same size. Because basically, if I just create a merge here and put A over B, let me go ahead and shut down Maya here because I think this is going to cause this to kind of crap out a little bit. You'll see this is what's happening. So we've got a small image. I mean, it's not small. It's a 1920 by 1080 image here, and 8192 by it's not going to work. So the first thing I want to do is I want to hit S in my scene and make sure that my file format size is what I want. So 1920 by 1080, and then I always add a reformat node to make sure that everything is being reformatted to that size. And now everything's kind of working together a little bit now. Okay, so now we got that over the scene. This background's cool, but we want it to be brighter. And I know it's warped. It's like some, it's a spherical map. But frankly, it doesn't really matter once we start to expose it up a little bit. So let's say we want it somewhere in that region there. So it's a full exposure up from where we were. Because again, if you're ever looking at reference on this kind of stuff and we're exposing for this interior scene without a huge amount of artificial light on the inside, the exposure level inside of a room is always going to need to be overexposed versus what you would see outside. So this would kind of be how this would look overall. The next step that I want to do is there's so much light back here behind them that I don't think that really a simple over node is really going to cut it. So I'll just go ahead and throw in a light wrap node. Put these over these two. And now you can see cool, but nothing really happens, right? I want to turn this intensity up to 1. And now you can start to see it there. I want to just generate this wrap only. And so now we're only seeing the wrap inside the characters. And what I want to do with this is I want to take this and plus them together so that when you see it, you've got this kind of around the edge. And we'll take that into the over. So you can see, just kind of create some edge blur there. Now this is too much, I think. Generally, I would want to make that a little bit more diffuse. Turn down the intensity a little bit to like 0.5, like half of that. You can enable some glow on it if you want. That's always fun. So it just kind of looks a little bit more halo-y, a little prettier. So go ahead and do that. And then, let's see, I'll just kind of take a look. Yeah, I mean, that's feeling about where I wanted to. Like, let's say that then I just kind of wanted to create a little bit of an overall glow in the scene. Just kind of make this super magical. Too much right now. We'll go ahead and knock that down a little bit into about this region here. And then, actually that's not really there at all. So there we go, just a little bit more. Let's say I wanted to kind of zero in with a vignette. Just go ahead and draw a little roto around the edges here. I may not want it over the sky. Just kind of leave it out of that. Go ahead and blur this up by, let's see, I mean, you can kind of see it here. So this is like very hard edged. Let's go ahead and blur it by like 200 pixels. We don't want to make the inside darker. We want to make the outside darker. So I'll go ahead and invert it there. Now take a grade node and just kind of take it down a little bit. We can adjust that too if we want to bring this in a little bit more. See how that looks. Yeah, it doesn't really hurt the image too much to just do that. Maybe bring this down just a little bit more. Now we can start to kind of vignette it in a little bit. Now the one thing too that's kind of irritating me about this shot is there's like a couple things. Like one of them is just like this. Well, like the background here. Like I like the lighting kind of on the characters, but this background's getting a little bit blown out. And additionally, the bear is just looking a little bit on the green side for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and just to like mock them up, I would probably change the shader in the long run, but I love me some crypto mats just to do some testing. And also if I'm on a very tight deadline and I need to get something out the door. So we've got the crypto mat of this guy. I just want to select them. And if you need to know how to set up a crypto mat, we have lessons on that. It's basically you just set the AOV in Arnold to do that. You just say, yes, I want my crypto mats on. When you bring in a nuke, you just bring in this crypto mat node and it allows you to select anything that you want in the scene and build like a automatic map for it. For those of us that have worked in the industry for a long time, we know that that is definitely not the case for a while. And you just have to render out lots and lots of map passes. And that was a tricky thing to do. I mean, it wasn't tricky, it was just time consuming. And this makes it so much better, especially when we're just doing some simple look dev stuff. So now I'm gonna create a hue correct node. This node can be intimidating to people, but basically it's like, it just gives you the options of saturation, luminosity, either red, green, or blue channel. You can use these suppression channels if you want, but these are generally the ones I wanna use. And basically it's like, if I wanted to take down the saturation just in like his yellow tones, I could just take down the yellow there, right? If I want to take it down overall, I could select all these and bring down his saturation overall. In this case, I'm using this because I want to suppress some of the green values overall in him. So I'll just go ahead and grab all of these, pull that down. And you can see now he's starting to get like a happier, like warmish brown color. And then additionally, I was saying that I wanted to take down some of the super brights here and over here, because like if I hover over them, you can see that like they're going up to like a value of like, if you look at the red value, they're up over 3, which may not be the biggest problem in the world, but just for this example, I can just show you guys how to do that. So again, look through the crypto mat, make sure this is turned on here, select these areas, Let's see, is that all I want? Do I want the, let's see, let's say I want the books too. Okay, now we've got all these areas selected. I can then go in here and I can take this exposure and I can just pull this down a little bit. Say we want it like somewhere in there, right? Okay. Now we've got this exposure up here. We've got a little vignette in there. We've got these values coming into place. We've got this bear looking a little bit warmer. Let's go ahead and make him a little bit brighter too. And again, this isn't definitely not how I would do it if this was the final version of this. This is just me just like brainstorming it so I can kind of get everything working in place. So this feels much better to me now. And now I know when I go into the scene, I will want to either add some extra light onto him or adjust his material value, because like the kid's getting a lot brighter faster than this guy. And like from the kid's standpoint, we could do some things too. We could take some yellow out of his hands there because it's the pages of the book are yellow and it's kind of reflecting up on there. And I think like overall his skin tone, see, this is where I could go nuts. I could do this all day and make a really sloppy comp. Basically, I'm looking at his skin tones and I'm seeing that they could use a little bit of warming up too. So I could go in here and just grab his skin. And just so you know too, you can grab it by the material value, you can grab it by the object or the asset. In this case, I was just grabbing it by the asset. You know, I use hue correct. I'll just go ahead and use it as a grade node. And one of the things I do want to point out is that anytime I'm using crypto mats, I always want to do the color corrections up above the reformat node. In this particular case, it's not reformatting it at all because it's the same size. But sometimes that stretching of pixels and reformatting the crypto and reformatting the original image, I know theoretically that should work, but in my experience, I found that those don't always add up. So I like to just go straight out of the original crypto and straight back in. Not a lot of wiggle room in there. Let's go ahead and, why is this? There we go. I always like it better when it pops out. Better control. So let's say I wanted to just make him a little bit warmer. Here we go. So now his skin looks a little bit happier, a little bit less gray. Again, we'll go ahead and, so just by doing these quick crypto mats, I can start to see some major differences here in this image. And we can kind of go from there. So yeah, so that's a pretty quick, let's see, that was less than a half hour of just kind of creating one light. I skipped the rendering part, but this is like a 2-minute render on this frame. And then you can start, yeah, you can really kind of dial in the look this way. And then what you'd want to do is you'd be like, you know what? We go ahead and self-evaluate here. I'm looking at this bear, like he's really flat on this side. Like I should add some more rim light over here, add some bounce light, make sure his eyes, and then do some eye work on the kid. Maybe I'm like, you know, the glasses, the red on the lenses is looking a little bit like too red. So maybe that's a problem. Maybe I want to take down the saturation in the material, and you can really work from there. And I definitely would want to like turn off the extra geo that's back here, because I think that's extra geo. Yeah, like turn off that stuff back there. And basically, yeah, that's it. And then like these panes between the frame between the windows is like too dark. I would add some bounce light in there. And I always like to add like a little extra bounce light up underneath them in these scenes as well, just to add some more shaping there. So if you guys have any questions about anything I did, feel free to hop in and ask. And then let me just hop over into Facebook. See, oh, hey, Asha, how you going? Sorry, I wasn't looking at my screen there for a second. So, yes, hello, how's it going? Yeah, so that's basically my approach when I am lighting something. Is I don't. So the main takeaways from this, yeah. So be careful of the surrounding geo in your scene, even if it's off camera, it can have a major, major, major impact on the look of your scene. specifically if it's, like we said, very close to the objects and like a bright white plane that'll reflect a lot of light back in the scene. Let me go ahead and share my camera again. Yeah, it'll definitely like bounce light back in the scene. It's also major too if you have anything that's reflective. Buildings with windows. If you guys are doing our lighting challenge for this month, you've got all the window buildings, and if you only isolate just these like little pockets that's only on the camera, you'll notice that the windows don't actually reflect anything, and the buildings themselves don't reflect anything in the surroundings, and that's not great. Also with eye reflections, with cars, anything with a reflective surface, you need to surround them with objects or image planes so that they actually have something to reflect. So that's one takeaway. The second is you don't have to go crazy in your Maya session before you take it into Nuke and start comping it out. It feels like a very final process. It feels like the final polish process, but it can be an integral part to your workflow as a lighter. Use cryptomats and other hacky comp tools to get your look the way that you want, so that when you go back into the script, into the Maya file or the 3D file, you can make those adjustments to the render, because they're going to look better if you do them in the render, because they start to get like secondary reflections. Like, let's say that bear was sitting on something reflective, and I went into the comp and I tweaked his values and I upped them and I like made him warmer and made him look all great and everything. His reflection isn't going to look the same. If you see him in the kid's reflection of his glasses, you want those things to match up. And so the secondary elements are going to be very important in that process. Is this how you comp in production? Yeah. I mean, I would, like, that's how I do like look dev stuff. And then what I would do in that situation is I would bring it in, comp it out. And then, I mean, the only other thing that I would do is I would like pre-malt and un-pre-malt and do all that stuff to make it a little bit cleaner. But this is just like a look dev process of it. I would, just bring in the images, slap stuff around, bring over the art director or the director or something and kind of show them what I'm up to, and kind of get their sign off that way. And then I would go through and do a thing. It depends. So the question is, so you try to nail it in render and do a little comp? Yes, as much as I can. The one thing, so I come from a photography background, and my attitude is, you want, like, I almost approach it like I used to with photography, like where I want, I know that the image that I'm rendering out is not going to be the final image. But what I want is a clean image that's got proper values, nothing too crazy that I need to like over crank or under crank in the comp. Because if I have to do too much work, like I said, those secondary elements will break, and you'll start to see them in the final product. So what you want to do is you want to push it as far as you can in the render, and then do it in the comp. Now, that being said, those are just on like the main elements of the image. If there are things that you can fake in the comp so you can save yourself time in the render, absolutely go for it. Like, an example from the last film that I worked on was I was working on in this. There was a city. We were in a city, and the camera was static, and the note was like, I don't feel like there's enough action, like things moving in the city, enough stuff going on. And it was a pretty shallow depth of field. Like, it was just kind of like a close up of characters and like the city in the background. So there's all this discussion of like, okay, should we go into the file, add some cards back there, animate them through, maybe animate some of this or that, like, and we said, hold on, let's just try something real quick. And literally all we did was draw like 2 little roto circles and gave them like colored lights, like a white, basically because it was like kind of parallel to the car. We gave them like a little white dot, a little red dot, and just glowed them up and just moved them along in Nuke. They were out of focus and they totally looked like cars. I mean, we drew like a little ghetto roto, like 6-point roto shape of a car, put those 2 radiuses on it and just slid it along. So, and those totally pass as cars in the depth of field stuff. So it's like making sure that you want to balance that stuff. But yeah, like the renders now are powerful, and they are able to pick up on those secondary elements. And so, I mean, might as well take advantage of that so you have a better final product. But yeah, like, and sorry, not to answer this question 7 different ways, but I always say this too, like nobody cares how you make your image. Like they don't care if you, like which software you use. They don't care if you do it in comp or in the render. What they do care about is what the final image is. So if you can do it in the comp and make a better final image, great. And if you can do it in the render and make a better final image, then that's great too. But yeah, hey Kleber, sorry, just see your rocket ships there. Okay, well, I always want to keep these like quick and to the point. I don't want to waste any time. And then, oh, one more question. So what AOVs do we typically spit out? It totally depends on the shot. I mean, there's not a default like series of them that I do. If there's any typical ones, I always like to split out the diffuse and the specular. I always like to throw out those crypto mats. Those are hugely beneficial. Yeah, specular, diffuse, direct, indirect, transmission, subsurface scattering. Normals are always great to have. And then obviously like alpha and Z depth. Z depth is a really big one. But it depends on how you, like, again, how you want to work. Like if you're doing, I know that in like in a production, let's say you had a production that was like very abstract, like you're doing something that looked like a tune shader. So you would definitely want to break out the albedo of all that stuff. And then maybe like, so you can render it one way and then pull the albedo out in the comp and like make adjustments to that and then tweak some stuff around to really get that tune shader that way. But I would say for the most part, as long as you have your diffuse, your specular, crypto mats, indirect, direct, normals, you can do pretty much everything with just those. The other thing too that I should point out is that this isn't exactly an AOV thing, but you do want to render your stuff in layers as well. So you'll have a character layer, a background layer, a far background layer, a foreground layer, where you break, like sometimes because it's easy to break elements up in the scene as you go back into space. Just so you can reduce render times that way. You can also have more control over them in the comp, and you don't have to rely on the crypto mats. It's a little bit cleaner, and you can do some effects, a lot more effects in the comp if you break them up that way. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then yeah, like depth of field stuff you can clean up, because if you're doing your depth of field in the comp and you have everything rendered together, you start to get some weird internal edges on stuff, and that's not great. So having them separate allows you to kind of fix that a little bit. So yeah, let me just double check, make sure there's no other questions on Facebook before I sign off. But yeah, like I said, do these every Monday. Try and do like little simple walkthroughs. If there's scenes that you guys are struggling with that you want me to light, that you're like, hey, I don't know how to do this, send it over. I can take a look at it and possibly do it on one of these. And yeah, so hope you guys are doing well. If you got anything else, post it to the Facebook group, email me, mike@academyofanimatedart.com. No problem. I don't even, it just says PC is your name. So I'm not quite sure who's asking these questions, but I hope you've been beneficial. And I'm just now realizing that my name says Jasmine Katatakarn on there. I didn't change it. So I'm not Jasmine, I'm Mike. I'm the other co-founder here. Let's see. So Devin's here. Someone on a PC is here, and Taylor's here. Hi, Taylor. I was just talking to you on LinkedIn. Hope everything's going well with you at SCAD. If you see our old Bridget or any of the old professors, make sure I tell them hello. I was in school there from 2005 until 2008. So make sure you tell everyone I said hello down there as well. All right, guys. You all take care. Enjoy the rest of your weeks, and I will talk to you soon. All right. Take care.